25% of Clay's traffic comes from programmatic SEO. And I've been sitting with that number for weeks, which left me with one question. Could any business do the same thing? Or does it only work because they're Clay? I'm Alex Lindahl. I'm one of the first GTM engineers at Clay. And over the last 2 years, I've been helping teams like NVIDIA and Atlassian scale with Clay and AI. So in this video, I'm cloning Clay's traffic system from scratch. And if you stick to the end of the video, you'll see the exact steps to build this content system and point it at your own business. I'm using my own newsletter as an experiment here, and I picked it on purpose because newsletters aren't regular websites. So if the system holds up here, it will hold up anywhere, whether you're growing a customer base, a sales pipeline, or a newsletter like me. So the whole experiment comes down to this one question. Can I find a person who has no idea this newsletter exists and give them something generally useful? And to do that, I needed a very specific kind of page. And this is where it gets a little bit unusual. The reader I want more of is a GTM engineer, someone building or moving into the role, thinking about Clay workflows all day, every day. And here's how I plan to capture their search, which is through GTM Engineering job openings. If you're a GTM engineer, you will most likely be searching for a job like this. And the role is exploding right now, which is great for me because you never want to rank on downtrending topics. It just doesn't compound. A normal job board would catch some of the traffic, but normal job boards are boring. You scroll past 40 listings, maybe save one, close the tab. Nothing brings you back tomorrow. So here's the play that I'm making. Every company page on this job board has a research layer sitting on top of it, not just a salary range, the stuff you actually want to know before you quit your current job to go work somewhere else. For example, funding history and how much they've raised, who's actually backing them, is it A16Z, a tier 1 VC, or some random VC? How fast their headcount is growing, or what they're actively trying to push. Not just the HR content that they put up. These GTM engineering jobs are in such high demand right now. Companies reach out to me all the time asking, hey, Alex, you're at Clay. You must know tons of GTM engineers. Who's looking right now? Who's talented? Who should I look at? Can you make any introductions? But it's really the GTM engineers that actually get to decide. They're looking at more than just a salary range. They want to know other things about the company. The research layer is the entire bet here, because the reason most programmatic pages fail is that they're thin. And thin content is always a data problem, never a template problem. So I run one test on every page before it goes live. I call it the thin content test. Strip out the company name, and if what's left is still generic, the data underneath isn't doing enough work. The company name has to earn its place by unlocking content that nothing else could generate. Let's use Clay as an example. We have a marketplace with over 230 different providers. Then we also have an AI agent that can do custom research. Think about a human going off and researching everything on the web or researching a company with tons of different Google searches. We can basically replicate that with this agent, and it's going to go off and find interesting things about this company. And so when we combine that data together, then we can start to come out with some pretty interesting point of views and pretty interesting takeaways that will help guide the candidate to figuring out whether this company is a good bet and a good fit for themselves. So my friends, that's the difference between a page that ranks and a page that just gets wiped out. But before I show you the build, there's one objection I need to get out of the way here. I hear it all the time. SEO is dying. People are using AI overviews, blah, 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 blah. And honestly, that part is kind of true. Ahrefs looked at 300,000 keywords and found that AI overviews cut click-through rates for the number one result by 58% in 2026. And that's up from 34.5% from just months ago. But here's what that number is actually measuring. It's measuring informational queries. Stuff like, what is GTM engineering? How does enrichment work? And so on. These are fact-based questions, and AI can answer those straight from its training data. So people don't really scroll past that AI overview. That's not what my system targets. It targets commercial and transactional intent, comparisons, directions, job listings. And when someone searches GTM engineer jobs at Ramp, they don't want a summary. They want the actual listing. An AI overview can't show them a job that's live today and gone in 2 weeks. Job intent searches are structurally immune to the AI overview problem. So this isn't the risk I'm losing sleep over. The risk I take seriously is a failure mode that has killed programs far bigger than mine. And then Google's March 2026 core update went straight at scaled content abuse. Niche sites running 500 or more AI-generated pages saw 60 to 80% of their traffic disappear. If the pages are good enough that the domain would survive even if the SEO experiment completely failed, then the risk is something I can actually manage. And if you want to run this exact system today, there's a free Clay template that does the page half. You type a company name, Clay enriches it, AI writes the copy, and the Webflow integration creates a live page. It's programmatic and it scales to hundreds. Same engine pointed at a landing page instead of a job listing. Now let me show you exactly how it's built. To orientate you here, this is a Clay table, and think of it as building a workflow from left to right, and each column can be a different data provider, it can be AI, it can be a source, it can be a formula, and so on. So the first step is we need a source for our job openings. So let's go down here to add a new table, and from here you have a bunch of different options, but what we really want to look for is find jobs. So when we go here, we're basically deciding what job titles we want to search for. So let's say we want to search for deployed engineer. Great. Now when we run this is going to show us all of the job openings that are up right now for companies that are hiring a forward deployed engineer. So that's basically what I did, but for the GTM engineer. So let's go back to that job table. All of these jobs are coming in, and they come in live as job openings appear. And what this information gives us is a number of things. So we have like the LinkedIn URL of where the job opening is coming from, the title, location, seniority, salary, max and min, company, and so on. So that's like our starting information. Then we can start to enrich that information with additional insights on the company. So here we're pulling in the full company profile, basically all the data you would find on LinkedIn, to get more firmographics. So location, description. We even have different locations here that we can find, total funding, revenue, employee count, and so on. Then we can also break this information out into their own separate columns. Let's get to the more interesting stuff. So one of the things I always look for when evaluating, especially like a startup, is to look at their funding history. Have they been backed by tier 1 investors? How much funding did they get for each round, total funding, and so on. So this is basically a Claygen prompt, goes out, researches on the web to find their different funding rounds, and gives us a summary of those. The next thing we want to do is figure out, is this company growing or is it shrinking? So we have an enrichment here where we can actually go in and find all sorts of growth metrics on how fast this company has been growing over the past month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, and so on. We're just going to use 12 months for this. I think that's enough, but you can also get all the data points and then even create like a chart of that growth over time. Okay, the next thing you do when you're kind of like looking at a company and whether or not to join is like look at what happened over the last 12 months. So this is a Claygen that's going out and basically doing exactly that. It's figuring out what were the key moments over the course of the year or milestones that might be interesting to that candidate to kind of look at and read through. So we have for each milestone, the date, a link so they can actually go to it, get more information, what it was in a 2 to 3 sentence summary, and then also positive. Over here, we're going and getting additional information such as, what technologies are listed on the job opening, what are the job responsibilities, and what are the use cases that are being mentioned. We also have the job requirements. Now, what I want to do with the use cases, and this is how we go from like thin content to more valuable content, is take these use cases and then find relevant workflows or tutorials online, or even going to like Clay University so that person can prep for those use cases or learn them if they don't already know how to build them out. Once we have all this information, step 2 is to create an HTTP API column. This column is basically taking the data in Clay or in this Clay table, creating a JSON format of all the data, connecting it to a Supabase endpoint. We have the method, and this is basically going to be our way of getting all this data into Lovable and Supabase so that Lovable can build a front end for us for all the different pages. And so one of the key things that Lovable needs is it needs a unique URL slug for each different job opening. That way, when Lovable goes to create that page, it's using the right keywords in the URL, which helps with like SEO. All right, so now the question is, how do we get all this data into Lovable and program Lovable to use that data to create the web pages? Basically, what I did was I took that body, copied this, and in Lovable, I gave it a prompt. You'll see the prompt on the screen, and basically this prompt says, hey, Lovable, building a job board. This is the JSON payload I'm going to give you. I need to set up a Supabase backend. Please configure that Supabase backend. And then anytime you get this JSON payload, plug it into Supabase, and then I'll give you the next steps moving forward. Now, the next prompt after that's all done, is to tell Lovable like what exactly this job board should look like, how it should like render the data, and so on. Now let's actually go into the job board and take a look at like what this actually turns out to be. So basically what's happening here is all of that data and jobs from Clay is automatically going into Supabase, and then Lovable is pulling all of that data into the front end. What I wanted to do in terms of like how I look for jobs is obviously look at the most recent jobs, but I also want to know like, okay, which are the companies that are like the most funded, or which ones are like have the highest paying roles. So I wanted to create some filters here so it's easy to find different types of jobs or different types of companies to work for. So for example, some people really like to work for earlier stage companies, others like to work for more established later stage companies. So this is a job board. You can search, go by Series A, Series B, growth stage, and so on. But let's take a look at one of these profiles. This is the HackerOne job opening for a staff applications engineer for GTM systems. And what you'll notice is actually there are some stats that you may typically see on a job board. But first, I'm giving you information about the company itself, what's happening. So on the left here, we have company intel about different milestones that are happening over the course of the past like 12 months. On the right, we have a brief synopsis of like, hey, why is this company interesting at this given point in time? So for example, for HackerOne, they got a new CEO. They launched a new product that is related to agents. They're growing over 200%, or this is a great time to join HackerOne because there's an opportunity to rebuild these systems as they enter into this like new era of the company. Then we have company stats at a glance, funding, Series A through Series E, total raised. We have investors, so you can take a peek at, are these tier 1 investors or tier 2 or tier 3? In the next iterations, I plan to, highlight which ones are tier 1 and then also provide links to some of these people and profiles. Then you're probably wondering as a candidate, like, what am I going to be building at HackerOne? So I give 3 examples of workflows that would probably fit nicely into what that business does and what they're looking to achieve. Those are great things to bring up in the interview and even have a pre-built workflow ready to show off. So what else is going to help build that workflow? Well, we're giving you information on the company, who they sell to, their ICP, who their customers are. We also have their tech stack. You'll typically find that in a profile. But what we're doing here is we're actually taking this information, we're taking it a step further, and we're helping you prep for the tech stack and for the different workflows that you may be building. So we have a section on like what you'll actually do there, the problems that you'll solve, what they're looking for. Now here's the twist. The next part is what no job board has. An actual section that's going to help you prep for the interview and actually give you resources so you can build those workflows that we mentioned up above. These are all Clay University guides that specifically relate to the jobs to be done at that company. You go into that interview, you have something built, it's very bespoke, it's for the business. No one else is going to do that. And that's the difference between thin content and content that actually provides value that people want to come back to, and that's going to help you rank with Google. But because I want to be as honest and transparent as possible, here's what I'm going to track for the result. Again, this is an experiment, so I'll report back regardless of whether it's good or bad. I'm learning here too. SEO is new to me, same with AEO, but I want to teach you as I learn myself through a real-world application and real test. I'm tracking 4 key things here. How many pages get indexed, which keywords actually pull traffic, and how many of those visitors subscribe. And the big one, will this research layer really set these pages apart, or will Google just see them as any old page? I'll be honest with you on the timeline, because SEO isn't an overnight thing. Even if it's executed perfectly, you're looking at months before it turns positive. And I'll report back here, so make sure you subscribe. If you want to follow this experiment all the way through, the wins, the failures, the real numbers, subscribe. Come join us. I also put out a weekly newsletter with over 7,500 GTM operators, founders, and investors already inside. And yes, that's the exact newsletter I just spent this whole video trying to grow. Thanks for watching.